Follow the Worst Sports channel on YouTube, Hot Garbage Sports, with me, Coach Ryan D. Wow, big news out of the NHL's Atlantic Division. Boston Bruins, David Krejci, bye-bye. He's taken his ball and going back home. So Krejci will not be signing with the Bruins, and the Bruins made some really interesting signings in this offseason in preparation for this happening, as well as preparation for losing Tuukka Rask to injury. Are the Bruins still going to be Stanley Cup contenders and powerhouses in the NHL Atlantic Division? Stay tuned till after the intro. Let's talk all things Bruins.
Here's Lemieux. The center penalty coming up.
And if you're new to Hot Garbage Sports, please drop a like, drop a subscribe on our way to 5,000. Hey, I just met you. This is Krejci.
Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy.
He's gone. Krejci's gone. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Thank you, Carly Rae Jepsen, for borrowing me some terrible, terrible background singing so we can highlight where David Krejci is going. David Krejci has decided after 15 years in the NHL and 14 seasons that he wants to go play back home, and we don't know why. Nothing has been spoken about why, but it leaves a big hole in the Boston Bruins roster. But the Boston Bruins have almost spent up to the cap at this point, signing a few big free agent names, and that's Boston hockey for you. They are always chasing a Stanley Cup. They are always in contention and a threat to win. And I do not think that changes this year, even with the loss of David Krejci. The hockey writers right now have declared that without David Krejci, they don't see the Bruins' chances of returning to the Stanley Cup being likely. I'm going to say no. Even though the division is stacked with the likes of the Maple Leafs, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Florida Panthers, and the pesky Montreal Canadiens that always continue to hang around, you never know what the Detroit Red Wings are going to do, and you really never know what the Buffalo Sabres are going to do. Yeah, we do. They can be dead last like they are every year. Hey, Coach, did you forget a team out of that division? Nope. Sure didn't. All right, so let's summarize what the Boston Bruins have done. The Boston Bruins have signed several forwards to fill the gap that they anticipated that they might have with David Krejci walking away. I think Boston probably knew that Krejci was on the fence while making these signings, which is why a lot of them were made. They're insurance policies. So you end up bringing Erik Haula. Erik Haula is not a bad little player. 2 years at $2.375 million. You bring in Tomas Nosek at 2 years, $1.75 million. And then you bring in my favorite last name in the NHL, Nick Foligno. Leafs fans had to deal with this. We know it's Foligno, but you know what? Up yours. So yes, Nick Foligno, probably one of the better signings of all this, is going to end up slotting in for the Boston Bruins. And frankly, this guy is a Bruin. When I think of the definition of hard-nosed two-way defensive hockey with leadership, Nick Foligno is the guy you want in your lineup, Boston. I would be super excited to have this guy on my roster. And even though your perfection line is going to be untouched, Nick Foligno moves inside your middle six, whether it be line 2 or line 3. He can flex up and play the center role if required. He can go ahead and play on the right wing if required. He can fight if required. He can hit. He is a no-nonsense, tough, nose to the grindstone type of player. He fits Boston beautifully. Tomas Nosek gets added in there, and Nosek is just a really interesting addition to a fourth line. He brings the ability to play on the third line if required, but frankly, he is more of a depth piece that ends in as a wily veteran in on your fourth line that can provide, a little bit of scoring here and there. Not too many points, but, fourth line stuff. And then finally, Erik Haula comes over from the Nashville Predators, a team not so differently built from the Boston Bruins, but is in the middle of a little bit of a rebuild. He moves into Boston, which makes me think he is going to be a really nice addition to this roster. And what I like about him is that between him and Foligno, you can definitely slot in a third line center to replace Charlie Coyle, because Charlie Coyle's getting a promotion to the big penthouse on line 2. Is there a penthouse on line 2? Well, that's where he's going, line 2 behind Patrice Bergeron. Let's take a look at what a fantasy Boston Bruins lineup could consist of, because, well, we're not the Bruins coach. Okay, so Bruce Cassidy could run some type of combination like this. Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak, Hall, Coyle, and Smith, DeBrusk, Haula, and Foligno, and then Nosek, Federic, and Wagner. And that kind of leaves Curtis Lazar as the odd man out. So those are your likely 13 forwards that you're going into the season with. Now let's talk about defensemen. So Mike Riley returns back to Boston with a 3x3 contract. This is a really nice deal for a top forward defenseman. Boston, obviously you're familiar with Riley. Clearly, we don't have to talk about him too much. This is just a good player in your top 4. And then you sign the ex-Winnipeg Jet that I know very well and very well in depth, Derek Forbort. Had a fan on this channel ask me, hey, Coach Ryan, is Derek Forbort really as bad as everybody's making him out to be? Maybe you might have signed a real bad deal here. But, let's give Derek Forbort a lot of credit. The Winnipeg Jets are known for doing this. They bring in players at league minimum or bargain basement contracts, because Forbort was on a 1x1 last year, $1 million for a year, and they end up putting them into positions that are above their pay grade. That means they end up playing in a top 4 role or a top 6 role or somewhere with the Winnipeg Jets that they just shouldn't be playing, and then they end up using that experience, leaving and being signed by another team to a much bigger deal because it looks like they were a larger contributor on their team than they actually were. So what does Derek Forbort bring? He brings a lot of size, as we know, and he brings shot blocking ability to the back end. Forbort led the Winnipeg Jets in shot blocks, and that is something that the Boston Bruins pride themselves on. Forbort is going to be a key piece to this cog of keeping pucks out of the net. The other advantage that you have for Derek Forbort is that he's likely going to play on a bottom pairing role, and he's going to have a few more sheltered minutes. So he's a good penalty killer that he's going to brings good shot blocking. He's tough. He plays Bruins hockey. Yeah, a 3x3 that's a pretty high contract for Derek, to be honest. I don't know if I would have paid that. So I think he took on a cap hit that just didn't make a ton of sense to me, but I think he's going to slot into the roster quite well. I think in a bottom 3 role, he's going to do good things. And I think his size and shot blocking and penalty killing ability is exactly not only what the Bruins need, but it just fits Bruins hockey. It's an overpay by maybe $1 million a year, but it's nothing that's going to end up breaking the bank or costing you a Stanley Cup. So he is a good add. I just wouldn't be sitting here thinking that he's going to be more than he is. So temper your expectations on Forbort. Accept that he's probably an overpayment right now. Accept that he's probably trigger happy reaction, I think, especially because he's a left-handed D. Getting a 3x3 for what he does just doesn't feel great to me, but he's there. He's going to plug in, and the fact that you're going to run with Grzelcyk and McAvoy in your top pairing, I mean, McAvoy's the man, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and then you got Riley and Carlo coming in as your second pairing. That's a really nice solid 3-4, and Forbort and Clifton with Zaboral and Moore backing up in kind of the 7-8 spot down in the minor leagues or whatever it is. It is a very decent and serviceable defensive core. Okay, so let's talk goalies. Linus Ullmark comes in and signs at a pretty big deal, $5 million. That's right in the middle between, an elite goaltender, entry-level goaltender. He is clearly coming in to be the starter over Jeremy Swayman, which hurts my heart because I think Jeremy Swayman is a fantastic goalie, and I think if given the chance, he could have been the future of this team, but he's relegated again back to backup regardless of how hot he is. Linus Ullmark is a nice addition from the Buffalo Sabres, and it will be very interesting to see what he can do carrying the load away from Tuukka Rask, who has been a decade with Boston now, to see if what I have been saying and other people have been saying about Rask, that he's one of the reasons, if not the main reason, let's be honest, that's what I've been saying, if he's not the main reason that the Boston Bruins have been unable to win the Stanley Cup. Sure, he took you to 2, but like Curtis Joseph, Tuukka Rask just feels like he's not going to get it done, right? Okay, so Ullmark is a nice signing. Now, here's a really tough thing to think about, and that is that I think this window may only be 1 year. Follow me so we can take a look. So we can see here on the forward group, Patrice Bergeron, the captain, the best player on this team, even above Marchand, I believe. I truly believe that, even above Pastrnak. Patrice Bergeron is the heart and soul of Bruins hockey. He's not getting any younger. He's 36 years old right now. He's a 37-year-old free agent. What is he going to sign for? He's already won a cup. He gave Boston an amazing hometown discount. And the best thing the Bruins do on their salary cap situation is sign players to unbelievable discounts. Take a look at this. 6.8 for Bergeron, 6.6 for Pastrnak, 6.1 for Marchand, and then you get Taylor Hall in for 6. Awesome. Just an awesome job at salary cap management at this point. But when Bergeron is gone, next year it's going to be tough because you got to re-sign Jake DeBrusk if you don't trade him as an RFA. And then when you scroll down to the defensive side, you see that it's Charlie contract time. And Charlie contract time is probably going to be $8 to $10 million. Think some Dougie Hamilton money there may be deserved. So once that kicks through, That's tough. With the salary cap situation that the Bruins are going to be facing, this may be the window. I'm not saying it's going to be rebuilt, and with no notable contracts coming off the books next year, that is going to be one heck of a salary crunch. So I think with Ullmark, with Forbort, re-signing Riley, and then bringing in the 3 forwards between Haula, Nosek, and Foligno, love Fogliano, Boston Bruins have gone all in again every year. It's just what they do on trying to win a Stanley Cup. Now, where do I think they could stand in the Atlantic Division? It is going to be hyper competitive between Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay, and Florida. And here's the interesting thing about hockey fans. The first place team, whether it be in a conference or division, very rarely wins the Stanley Cup. In the NBA, it happens all the time. In the NHL, it actually happens less than 30% of the time. So there are 2 seasons in hockey. There's the regular season, which is a totally different game from the playoffs. And all you need to do in the regular season is seed yourself for the playoffs, because the playoffs are a totally different beast. It does not matter what happens to Boston in the regular season as long as they can make the playoffs. This team is playoff built and playoff ready. They always are. So I'm telling you, if the Bruins end up getting to the postseason, which they should, then there is going to be a war on their hands for the Stanley Cup. And with the Tampa Bay Lightning having to disband some of their players, it weakens them a little bit from the, impossible team to beat that they were last year and the year before to a team maybe you can beat. So I still have Tampa Bay on top of this division. The Toronto Maple Leafs, adding Peter Mrazek and a couple other pieces, are still a very excellent hockey team with a lot of scoring up front. And then you go ahead and take a look at the Florida Panthers, one of the best 5-on-5, if not the best 5-on-5 team in the NHL. You throw the Bruins in there, and those are your 4 big boys for this division. Sorry, Habs fans. That doesn't mean the Habs won't make the playoffs as a 5 spot. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be surprised if the Habs made the playoffs in a 2 or a 3 spot. You never know what the pesky Habs are going to do. They remind me of the Finns when it comes to international hockey. They're always hanging around. No one's ever given them any credit. I'm never giving them any credit. No one's giving them it. No one wants to see them there except the Finns and the Habs fans. And somehow they get there. So there are going to be 5 teams really battling. I don't see Detroit or Buffalo making any noise in this division. And like I said, there's only 7 teams. I definitely didn't forget one. So where do I think Boston sits? I think Boston sits 2 or 3. I really do. So I have the 2 Florida teams on top. Oh, sorry, Leafs fans. Guess we're going to have to see. But again, just got to make the playoffs. I have the 2 Florida teams on top, and I have Toronto and Boston in the 3-4 spot, somewhere there. But however else it shakes out, whether I'm right or I'm wrong, I think those are the 4 teams that are getting through. But Montreal will just screw this up for me again completely. So thank you for tuning in to our breakdown of the Boston Bruins here on Hot Garbage Sports. We're going to continue talking about some of the big teams, the Leafs, the Habs, talk a little bit more about the Kraken. We'll get into the Oilers in a little bit. Stay tuned.